Hello, and welcome to Story Power, a bi monthly podcast I created because I'm an unabashed story lover. Stories have had a huge impact on my life, starting with the family movie night discussions my parents instituted when I was a child. I want to share that love with you. As cognitive scientist Roger C. Shanks says, humans are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. I'm making it my mission to not only spread the love of stories, but all the valuable things they teach us about human nature and relationships. We humans are emotional creatures, and stories help us examine our emotions from a comfortable distance. They also help us walk in the shoes of the characters to help us see the world in new ways. It's my hope you gain some valuable insights from my guests. Hello, Story Power listeners. Today I'm talking to Leif Bristow, and this is episode 159. And he is an Emmy winning filmmaker, producer, director. He's done a lot of Hallmark movies along with other things. But today we want to talk about the book and movie Dancing Through the Shadow, which is about, now I'm going to say her name wrong. Tia Zhang, is that how you say it?
Tia Zhang, yes.
Zhang. Tia Zhang. And she lived through the Mao Zedong era of China, and she was a ballerina. And I've only read 8 chapters so far, unfortunately, because I just got the book yesterday.
Hmm.
So, welcome to the show, and I want to talk about mostly about that book and the movie because you and I were talking before we started recording about that when it's going to be visible for people to go watch, and they can get the book now. So, welcome, and I'll let you start talking wherever you want to talk about that project.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Um, yeah, I mean, the book is really it's an amazing story, and so much of what in my film career I focus on a lot of stories about women rising above adversity. Part of the
Hmm.
reason for that is I had daughters, and I just didn't feel there were a lot of positive role models for young women in film and television.
Yeah.
So early in my career, I kind of adopted that as a philosophy.
Uh-huh.
And then our youngest daughter, who has done a lot of Hallmark movies, people recognize her everywhere we go. Um, she graduated from Canada's National Ballet School and as a ballerina.
Uh-huh.
And when she was there, one of her teachers happened to be Tia. And so we got to know Tia because of that. And
Uh-huh.
when we heard her story and um, from another teacher at the school, I said to Aggie, I said, we have to make a movie about her life. So the only way to do that is first to find out about her. And
Right.
Aggie was a social worker and did an awful lot of family counseling
Uh-huh.
prior to our work in film. And so she talked to Tia and asked Tia if she would be willing to tell her a bit about her life. And of course, Tia certainly never in her lifetime imagined that she would tell someone who was not even Chinese the story of her life. And
Right.
much of it she hadn't really discussed with very many people.
Yeah.
Um, but she came and she would sit on our porch and in the house and talk with Aggie. And they talked over a 2 year period. And she really gave Aggie an amazing insight to her life. And it took a number of years going back and forth. And Tia is the woman that created what the world knows as Shen Yun, the Chinese dance extravaganza that's all over the world.
Yeah.
Tia created that. And she's considered probably the world's greatest expert on traditional Chinese dance. So, when Tia was growing up, um, as you say, she grew up, she came of age during Mao's reign. Um,
Wow.
when
Right.
when she was young and Mao came to power, her father was one of the most senior military people in Beijing.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, it was a peaceful surrender. he was one of the people that ended up surrendering Beijing to Mao.
Yeah.
So when they all of the former Kuomintang, which is the government of Taiwan today, when
Yeah.
the former Kuomintang tried to leave, they were given a day in which they could go to the ocean, catch a boat that would take them to Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
But to get there, what they had to do is they get to the beach, they had to take a small boat, then get out to the ship to leave.
Right.
When they arrived at the waterfront with their possessions, being pulled by a water buffalo, they went to load them into a boat, and soldiers saw his military uniform and started shooting bullets into the air. And one of the bullets came down, hit her little brother's leg. So they ran back to shore, and they became stranded in China.
Yeah.
So our father was um, interviewed, we'll be polite. Her father was interviewed for approximately 3 months, and then was sent away to work in a hospital 5 hours away from where they lived. Now, to put that in perspective in terms of where they lived, their home was one of the absolute elite homes in Beijing at the time. It is still in Beijing and has been maintained as a tourist site for people to see how some of the most opulent homes in Beijing of that time. They had servants, they had pawns, they had all of the things that an elegant Chinese home would have.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came back, they were able to live in one room of their own home because it was filled with people. And then, and because of the way things worked, when you're assigned to an area, you can't leave that area because each denwa has its own leader, and you report into that leadership. So her father was only given the opportunity to come home twice a year. So it was very troubling. And then mother, who um, grew up very wealthy, was then sent to work in a dress factory. And Tia, who loved to dance at the dress factory, sometimes they would hold dances, and Tia loved to dance. And then at a certain point, Betty Oliphant, who was one of the founders of Canada's National Ballet, was invited to come to China because Madame Mao determined that they needed to restore certain cultural things. So they determined to set up the first traditional ballet school, being what the West understands as ballet from France and Russia, and set up the Beijing Dance Academy. Tia ended up being selected to be in the very first class of that. She was known as the jumper,
Oh.
and she was very, very proper. When she went in there, at one point, Betty Oliphant had all the girls turn around, and she wanted them to lift their shirts so she could see their back, just to check out their spine.
Right.
Tia thought that was very inappropriate and refused to lift her shirt, but she could jump. And there's actually books with photos of Tia dancing in squares where Mao was, where you see her in the air. And it reminds some people of seeing photographs of Baryshnikov as he would soar through the air. And so she then went to the school, and was there, and ultimately met a man by the name of Jason. She was asked to pose for a statue that is still at Workers' Stadium in Beijing. She and Jason were asked to pose for a statue because the CCP wanted to show all the beautiful faces of the new China on the 10th anniversary of their administration. But when Tia stood next to Jason, who was a hurdler on the athletic team, they weren't permitted to speak to each other. They just had to stand next to each other and model. But she completely fell in love with him.
That's right where I am in the book.
Yeah, well, then I don't want to spoil the book for you, but Mother wasn't totally excited by that, to say the least.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
took her mother to the theater, and she didn't like him.
No, and she said, "Well, you can't date him because he's too tall. And he didn't have the education I want, and he didn't come from a rich family. So get with the means to support her the way she wanted." But eventually, she and Tia had a fight that lasted for months because Tia was equally strong-willed.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, mother said they could date as long as he would get an education. And at the time that happened, he'd had injuries and had
Oh,
just enrolled in the Beijing University in the Department of Medicine to become a traditional doctor.
oh,
So then mother was fine, and grandmother was very happy because there was going to be a doctor in the family. So um, it was pretty amazing. But the the trials that they endured following that um, was unthinkable. Jason went to at the university. While he was there, he asked a question of one of his leaders on behalf of some of the men he represented because he was the head of his unit.
oh,
And so he asked a question. Well, that question and the fact that he'd asked the question was put in his file. And on the day that he graduated, the following day, he was told he was being sent to a labor camp near the Russian border that most people never, ever returned from.
oh gosh.
But because he'd graduated with a degree in medicine, he was treated a little bit better. Um, and because he was providing medical treatment to the other inmates. I mean,
Yeah.
and when you think about it, the labor camp near, or not labor, we won't call it labor. Well, as they term it, a thought reform camp. So you're sent to the thought reform camp to really think about your thought process
Mm-hmm.
um, and do hard labor. Like there, they would use rocks to pound rocks to create gravel for the roads. And that's what you did all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And he and they did it by hand, which is it's just brutal to see. But they in the huts that they lived in, you would because of the weather, what you would do is you would basically dig a hole in the floor. You would put the embers from the fire into that hole, and you had a straw mattress that was raised above the hole. So you're basically breathing in smoke all night.
Ugh.
So you can imagine living in these huts made of mud and grass,
Yeah.
um, and the molds and all the other things. So, and in the cold winters, most people didn't survive. Tia was given permission to go see him. It was 18 hours by train. Um, she went to see him, and when she came home, she because they got married right before he went.
Mm-hmm.
Um, without permission of the government, which was unusual. Um, but Tia didn't care. She she wanted them to be married, and she was going to wait for him. And um, when she came home, she discovered she was pregnant. And um, at that time, then Madame Mao decided to disband all of the ballet schools because she felt ballerinas didn't know what hard work was like. So she sent them all to labor camps. So Tia, 56 days after her child was born, had to give her son up to leave with her mother and grandmother, and was then sent to a labor camp, and really only saw her son twice in 3 years.
Oh.
Yeah, the story is it's horrific to imagine, and what I love about the book is um, Aggie's brilliance in writing it through the eyes of Tia. Like you
Yes.
see the world through Tia's eyes.
Yeah.
You feel it. You can smell the food. You taste the world through Tia's experience.
Right.
Which I think that's one of the reasons I think the book is beautifully masterful in that regard, and it strikes such an emotional chord. And for most of us, who were raised in North America, I was born in Toronto, but I was raised in the U.S. So I
Uh-huh.
lived in Alaska, Denver, Dallas, Chicago,
Uh-huh.
Pasadena, and I live in Toronto again. But um, we don't know our neighbors that well that come from different cultures.
Right.
And I think it's fair to say for most all of us,
Mm-hmm.
11% of North American population is of Asian descent.
I know. Yeah.
People don't realize that when the railway was built, Chinese laborers were among the very first brought to North America to help build America's railway, and they were treated no different than the blacks.
And they could not get citizenship until 1920 something or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only reason and the reason there's a reason there is a Chinese restaurant and a Chinese dry cleaner in almost every city in America. It's because if they had a business in something they knew how to do, they were permitted to stay. Well, on the railway, they all cooked and they all did the laundry. So they all set up restaurants and laundry, and that's what gave them permission to stay. But it was um, because having directed the movie and my entire cast was Chinese, with the exception of Brittany playing the woman that helped Tia escape. Um, it's really fascinating when you watch a movie with all Chinese actors, and all of a sudden this white person appears out of the middle of nowhere, and you kind of go, "Oh wow, what was that?" It was
Really?
it's really fascinating. It's a great cultural experience, but the learning curve of dealing with my actors, and because we had a conversation at the very beginning of doing the movie, is I said I wanted to make sure. I said, look, obviously I'm this white guy that's going to direct a movie about Chinese culture. Are you okay? And they said, yeah. And I said, I mean, if we think of it this way, family family stories, romance, pain, heartbreak, all of those are universal themes. We all laugh, love, get injured, cry. We all do those things, and we all feel.
Right.
The nuances of your culture is what you can teach me, and
Yeah.
make sure that that's honest in the movie. So we had a blast making the movie together, and I learned so much. And for them, like one of them explained to me, and showed me some material, and I did a little bit of research. At the time they were building the railway, if somebody who was Chinese um, uh, dated or had a relationship with a white woman, they were as likely to be hung as a black person. So they were always being found along the sides of the railway. So the treatment was horrific. Um, and, so, but to hear their story and understand that, close to 55 million North Americans are of Asian ancestry, but most all of us only know Chinese food, somebody who has maybe still has a laundry, uh, and a sitcom. We don't, how often do we have someone that we know of, say, Asian descent or another culture, and just say, gee, I'd like to know about you. I'd like to learn about you. You know, how do you celebrate this holiday different than how I celebrate it? What do you do different? Yeah, which I think the book um, opens a window into a culture in a more contemporary way than just hearing about. We're not hearing about the Ming Dynasty. It's about as contemporary of Chinese culture as there is in terms of understanding it today. I mean, we're, neither Aggie or I are permitted to go to China because of the book, because we wrote about it. And for China, they don't even believe the Cultural Revolution existed. It was just a very peaceful, prosperous time for China when Mao united China. And who cares if 35 to 70 million people died under his hand, including starvation, or whoever. He never be accused of saying anything negative. And the way Mao worked was he would say, someone needs to do this. They would go out and do it. And then they'd say, well, who told you that? Well, the head of the community. Oh, that person was either sent to a labor camp or killed.
Right.
Because you couldn't be bad news.
Well, and
So
also
it was a brutal period.
I thought it was so interesting that he did really what we would consider silly things, like, okay, we want to make more steel, so you have to go out and gather up metal, and you have to give up your cooking utensils and your eating utensils, and uh, and if you didn't meet that quota, that wasn't great. And everybody had to do that. Every single person. It was like, well, and everybody had a melting pot or something in their backyard. And I'm like, well, what do they do with that stuff after it's melted?
Well, that's the insanity of it all. I
Yeah.
mean, he had these different movements, and because he had negotiated, this was one of the big problems. He had negotiated a deal with Russia that they would supply steel to Russia, and Russia would provide crops. Well,
Oh.
one of the problems, and this is why the Great Famine happened in China,
Oh.
in the farming provinces, because they had massive rains, and Mao had summoned all of the able men had to come and work in steel factories. They never produced enough steel to build a bridge, I don't think.
Right. Yeah.
So and school kids would be required to go to school and find things on their way to school and surrender them when they got there, so that
Right.
something could be melted, which was just insanity. Um, and so then the floods came. They didn't produce any steel, so Russia said, "We're not giving you any food." And now all of the tractors are stuck in the mud in the Western farming provinces. And all over there were the old men and the women and little kids. There was nobody to deal with the machinery, no one to pick crops. So the famine happened in China, and millions upon millions of people simply starved to death. What a lot of people don't understand is that in the Western provinces, even cannibalism was practiced. Um, um,
Because they were so
just
desperate.
Yeah, yeah. And there's stories I could tell you about that that it'd give you nightmares, because I've interviewed people whose families were subject to it, as part of my research, and it's believe me, it was not pretty.
Oh. And now I don't remember if how old I was when Mao died. When did he die?
Oh my God! Now I'm trying to remember. Was it his reign ended? Was it 1989? I think
Really? That's the year the Berlin Wall came down.
no. Then it was before that.
Oh.
It was before that. Now oh, I got to pull up the book and remember myself. But yeah, it was. But it's
Well, we'll look it up. I'll look it up. But
yeah,
yeah, he was there a long time though.
yeah, he was, and
49
you
to
know,
whenever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was a long time, and and then after his death, Madame Mao and the gang of six, they were rounded up pretty quickly thereafter. So it was, yeah, no, it was not a. But what's wonderful about the book is it's a love story.
Yeah.
And that's you know the and even the movie. The movie is set against the backdrop of China at that time. It's
Right.
not a historical recounting of all the things, all the things that Mao did wrong. It's the
Right.
story of a woman and her love of her husband, of her son, of her family, of how to persevere against
Yeah.
all of that and rise above those adversities.
Right.
And after, at some point, Jason was released from the labor camp, and Tia had been released, and they came back. And then, in raising their son, that was a challenge because he didn't really know them at that point.
Right.
So, but they made the best of it. Her son is really wonderful, um, and she came back, and then uh, was asked to come back to the school to run it. And so she did that. And
The ballet
while she was
school or
there, yeah, yeah,
oh.
the Beijing Dance School, she then ran the school. You may recall there was a movie called Mao's Last Dancer, that won an Oscar a
Oh.
number of years ago.
Oh, I'm
That
writing that down.
the young man that movie was about, Tia picked him to go to the school, and he graduated exactly 10 years after she did, and she trained him.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
then he was given asylum in the U.S. Bush was the one that helped uh, gain his freedom,
Oh.
and it was so she went back and became the head of the school.
Mm-hmm.
And while she was there, there was a woman from the UK, from the British consulate, came and watched them dance and asked Tia if she would come to the UK. And at the time when they were beginning to be allowed to travel outside, there was
Uh-huh.
a man by the name John. He did the forward in the book. Um,
Oh, right.
so he actually is the person that arranged for Baryshnikov uh,
Right.
to defect, and
Yes.
is godfather to two of Barishnikov's children. So he also helped Tia defect, and he did
Oh.
it by introducing her to the young woman from the UK, from the
Mhm.
British consulate. Tia was invited to go to the British consulate, and what she'd been raised to think was if you left the Chinese borders, you would be killed. That's what they were all taught growing up in China.
Oh.
If you leave China, the world hates us, and they will kill you.
Mhm.
And we have it so great here, and the rest of the world is terrible shit. Well, she gets to London to dance, and is going through Chinatown and sees women walking the streets in Chinatown in London in beautiful dresses, and people walking and laughing and eating in restaurants outside, and doing all
Mhm.
these things. Then
Mhm.
she goes to dance and at Albert Hall, and she sees all these people, and she couldn't believe it. So as soon as she returned, she said to Jason, "We have to get out." And so it was, um, eventually she was able to defect. She came to the US where she had an aunt, and then immediately came back up to
To
Canada
Canada.
because she had, because because of John. When they got to Canada, they came in, and she went to work at Canada's National Ballet School
Oh.
under Betty Oliphant, the woman who had first accepted her to the school.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then she ended up at the school as a teacher and learning English. And her husband became he was he practiced traditional Chinese medicine, and he became the practitioner physician to Canada's National Ballet Company and
Oh.
to the Toronto Blue Jays, of all things.
Oh, wow.
And if you speak to people like Karen Kane, one of the world's greatest ballerinas, she will tell you that the reason she danced so long was because of Jason.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
And Karen and Frank Augustin both will credit their longevity to his practices and keeping them healthy. But
That's cool.
it's just such a remarkable story of how what people endure and rise above, and then find promise somewhere else. And I think what's universal about it is, when we think about North America it's a country of immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
and most of us, most of our families over the last 200 years
Yeah.
escaped some level of peril, or something is why they came.
Right. Yeah.
So whether you were, whether it was the Armenian Holocaust, or whether you're Jewish and things that happened there, or so
Right.
many other cultures that have faced trauma and escaped and tried to build a better life in a new part of the world.
Yeah.
So many people can relate to this story when they read it, and
Yeah.
that's the power of it.
Yeah.
It's not it, it's not solely Tia's story. I mean, this is Tia's story, but it's
Right.
the story of a great number of our Chinese neighbors, and the South Korean neighbors that went through their
Yeah.
battles, and Japanese, so many Asian families that went through different war times.
Right.
This story is familiar to them. It's familiar to people from Europe that escaped,
Right.
or like a friend of mine who was the cinematographer in our movie. When when he was 3 years old, the tanks came through the town he lived in Czechoslovakia. So when he
Oh.
read the script, it brought
Yeah.
back all those memories.
Oh,
So he
yeah.
knew why he came. So as I say, it's a universal story, and the power of this woman's love and dedication to protect her family and find a better life. That's pretty universal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah,
And I think
really.
it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Just as you've probably seen just recently, um, the book's received some really lovely recognition, which I think
It
is well
has.
deserved. It's
Yes.
I think for Egg, it's very humbling um,
Yes.
to have it received well, but I think it's such an honest story.
Yeah. And so, yes, because that's what I'm feeling. I love getting inside of Tia's head, and I'm thinking, because I, when I was a child, I used to do exactly like her. I'd be in church, and the minister would say something, and I'd go, "Wait a minute, that's not true." Or at school, The teacher would say something, and I'd go, wait a minute, I want to check that out. And that's sort of like Tia's. Tia was sort of like that, you know.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Mom. I don't I don't understand why you're saying that, or whatever it is, the teachers or whatever. Yeah, I could really relate to that. So I'm excited to finish the book, and I'm so glad you sent it to me. Thank you. And now,
Absolutely.
where did you say now people can go find the movie?
Well, I actually just today, as a matter of fact, just before coming on to talk with you, I was speaking with Amazon because it's part of the MGM catalog now. They just picked the movie up for
Oh,
worldwide distribution.
oh,
So we're just trying to organize now to have it go up on Prime worldwide,
uh-huh.
on Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
to set up a worldwide release for it. Um,
Okay.
so I hope in the next few weeks to be able to say when
Yeah.
that will happen. And
Okay.
of course, Brigitte will be able to help publicize that. And
Right.
through the publicity side on my film team,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
we'll be able to announce it and really try to get it out there for everybody because it's it is a powerful movie
Yeah.
to see and just so yeah.
Yes.
So I'm it will be out there very very quickly.
Very soon.
So we're excited for that. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I can't wait till that happens. Because then I'll have read the book and I can see the movie. And I like the movie book connection things. Although I usually watch the movie first and then go read the book. But yeah, I started to count one time and I stopped at 75 because I just had way too many books and movie connects. I was listing them, I was writing them all down.
Oh my
It's,
gosh, that's a lot.
that's too many. I had way more. I have way more. So um, yeah, that'll be fun. I'll look forward to seeing that. I'm really looking
And
forward to that. Yeah,
it's different, it's not your everyday story, but I mean, it's a romance movie. It's a love story. It's a family story. It's not. I don't do anything with gratuitous sex and violence. It's part of my model. I
thank
just
heaven.
don't do it. Um, well, you looked at my IMDb page.
Yeah,
I do some things with suspense, but only in mind suspense, more in an Alfred Hitchcock style than anything
right.
else. And when
Yeah,
I do it, but 95% of all the movies and series I make are designed for they may be PG 13, but
yeah,
designed for a global family to be able to watch together and
right,
be able to learn together and feel
right,
like I don't do kids programming, but pretty much everything I make is really 12 and up. But if an 8-year-old walks in the room, nobody has to worry.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
Maybe this story is not going to appeal to them, and it's a little bit tough for somebody under probably 12 or 14. But it's an important story because it's the truth.
right.
But at its core, it's a love story, and um,
Well,
it's just it's a great story and that's the book. It's a story of human triumph.
right. Now I had a question though. I haven't got that far, so I don't know if you might not want to spoil this, but when Tia and Jason and what's their son's name again?
Uh, Shuang.
Schwang, that's right. Because I read that in the early matters in the book. Um, when they came to the United States, what happened to her siblings and her parents? What was going on with them?
because because um, especially after Jason died, um, Tia Tia became very lonely, very despondent, and a friend of hers was a practitioner of Falun Gong,
Uh-huh.
Falun Dafa. And when Tia lived in China, and this is something interesting for readers and people to understand, at that time, under Mao, there was the practice of Falun Dafa, which is basically Tai Chi mixed with Buddhism. So you see people exercising in the park doing Tai Chi. and then they meditate. And they have three principles: forgiveness, forbearance, um, truth, um, truth, forgiveness, and forbearance, compassion. And they live by these principles. Um, they don't drink. They meditate. They believe through meditation, you will heal your body. You'll become more one with each other. And through Tai Chi, you can help your body. So this is something they practice. At a certain time, there were more people practicing Falun Dafa in China than there were members of the elite party of the CCP. China promoted it. They had Master Li write 5 books because they understood that when people practiced this, when they were doing it, they were happy. They weren't complaining. They weren't sick and going to hospitals. But then after Mao died, the subsequent leader was he couldn't gain control of the party. So one of the things he did was he determined that, well, now we have a problem because these Falun Dafa practitioners all congregate in parks and everything else. They could mobilize, and there's more of them than there are of us. What if they rebelled?
Right.
So he ruled it a cult, told the world that this group of people were cult followers, and that he was banning them from China.
Oh.
So much of the world, and in North America, so all people have ever heard is, oh, well, Falun Gong Dafa practitioners, they're all cult members. They practice Tai Chi and Buddhism. I don't know how cultish that is, but that was what they labeled them, and then said he would rid China of them. So he started arresting them. One of the problems he had is his own generals were all practitioners.
Oh.
So they were allowed to practice in secret. But Tia met somebody and she became a practitioner, and it helped her deal with Jason's death. And because she had defected, and because of that, she was told she was no longer welcome back in China. So when her parents died at 103 and 104, I believe, she wasn't permitted to go back for their funerals.
Oh.
So,
but they were not arrested or anything because she defected.
No. Okay. No, they were questioned.
Oh.
They were questioned, but never arrested. Her sister ended up in Toronto. Sister two ended up in Toronto. She had 2 sisters in Toronto, an aunt in the U.S., and then other families still back that was back in China. Shuang ultimately ended up marrying a prima ballerina from the National Ballet Company in Canada, who was taught by his mother.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and she was one of the prima ballerinas for many, many years. He designs high-speed trains and goes back and forth between Toronto and China for what he does with the trains. So it's very fascinating dynamic all the way around. But yeah, Tia, she wasn't able to go back, and then and then she took up that practice, which is why then when you see the Shen Yun dancers in 2006, she created that.
Yeah. Oh wow. So now they have a headquarters someplace, don't they?
Shen Yun it's massive in Taiwan and certain other countries, but they have what is ranked as one of the finest schools of music and dance in the United States. It's in the Hudson Valley, on the side of a mountain. And if I flew you in on a helicopter blindfolded into the Hudson Valley and landed you on this mountain, you would swear to God you were somewhere in ancient China, because all of the buildings are built according to the 5th century style. There are no nails. The pagodas are 9 stories tall. It's massive. They have a polished walkway around a lake that they totally cleaned out by hand, and is now crystal clear. They own all sides of the mountain, and walking around it are peacocks, and They have some of the most magnificent dance studios and theaters I've ever seen at any school in my life. Um, and they sponsor the dancers and the families that send their kids there. And many of the kids that are there are provided scholarships because a lot of the kids who are there, their parents have been arrested in China for practicing. And so these kids are basically orphans and are given free education and training and are taken care
Ah,
of by the school.
yeah. Oh, wow. I saw something on CBS Sunday Morning about that. And so I remembered that they had a location. It's pretty isolated in the United States, but I didn't remember where it was.
Yeah, it's in the Hudson Valley. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 kind of where uh it's upstate New York. It's 2.5 hours from Manhattan, or
Oh,
from like if you land at Newark, it's 2 hour and 20
yeah.
minute drive.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Okay.
fortunate. I've been there a few times to meet with Tia and
Hmm.
meet with some of the people, and it is one of the most magically spiritual places I've ever been in my life. And I've been in the Vatican. You know, I've uh, I've I've for part of my film career, like I'm the only filmmaker outside of the National Geographic doing something for the Catholic Church ever permitted to film in the Co-Cathedral of Malta, and the same thing in one of the biggest churches in Budapest, and the only filmmaker ever permitted to film in it.
Hmm.
And I feel pretty blessed that I've seen some magical places in my life, and this ranks from a spiritual perspective. I don't know that I've ever seen anything more magical.
Wow, that's great.
And you go sit by the lake, and all you'll hear is someone playing a traditional Chinese instrument from across the valley, and it just wafts through the air, and it's magic.
Wow, that's cool. That is so cool. So, um, so the book has awards and the movie is going to be on Amazon soon. Do you have now it looked like you had some other projects going.
Oh yeah, no, we at any given time we have quite a few. We we just finished a Christmas movie. Well, actually, finishing a Christmas movie in a week called The Royal Nannies, which is the prequel to a movie we did 3 years ago called The Royal Nanny, which
Oh,
premiered on Hallmark and around the world.
uh-huh.
We just did another one called Pining for Douglas. We're about to start two more movies in July. We're developing a couple of TV series. A couple of years ago, we did a series called Beyond Black Beauty for Amazon.
Uh-huh.
And then we've got a couple more big movies. We're developing a movie called A Holiday Christmas, which I would say it's the closest thing to this generation's The Holiday, that I've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
in a script. And we'll be filming at the original cottage from The Holiday,
Oh,
in
cool.
England. Yeah.
That was
So
fun.
yeah, it's a movie
Uh,
my daughter created, actually.
oh, that's cool. So now I'm assuming that Agnes and writes a lot of the things that you do, or do you have other?
We have lots of writers. I would say Aggie writes probably, I would say about a quarter of all the movies we make, Aggie
Oh,
writes.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Um, when you've done this for enough years and you know that formula so precisely,
Yeah.
sometimes it's easier to write it than it is to try to explain how to write it. Every writer we've ever worked with from around the world that tries to write, say, a Hallmark movie, but this style of romance, every one of them says, this is the hardest thing I've ever attempted in my career. I've had writers that are massively accomplished writers
Uh-huh,
try to write them, and they go, I can't do it. 10, 12 drafts later, they're going, I don't get it. It's very complex.
uh-huh.
They come across as simple when you watch, but
Mhm.
the architecture of them is very complex to make it look that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because unlike so many things, when you're dealing in straight up romance, you have to determine, are we doing kind of slapstick comedy? Are we doing this style of
Mhm.
controlled romance? And within that, quite often, and we do it a little bit differently. for us, we believe that the B story is imperative to support an A story, because so many of these romance movies get made, and you see your lead actress in a, in 83 minutes of an 88-minute movie, and then nobody cares about their journey because you're just bored of watching them. I think you have to have that B story, just like a good book. You have to have that underlying story that propels the A story, or the audience, or I think you're cheating the audience. So we insist on it in our movies. But where you have to be careful, like you can do in the book, you still always have to be propelling the reader forward in the storytelling, but you can delve into more aspects and the depth of people's lives within that storytelling and still keep the story moving forward. In a film, especially in a 90-minute or less film,
Yeah,
you can't go down too many rabbit holes or you lose the audience.
that's right.
So especially in romance, I'll always say to a writer, look, when all of a sudden you think, oh, I need to go down this hole and answer all these questions, stop thinking. because you're only going to harm yourself, because
Yeah.
it has to quick. You don't have the opportunity for a reader to sit and read 400 pages. You're telling the 400 pages in 88 to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's 105 pages. So you can't take them in all those other journeys. You just have to make sure that they enjoy a journey, that they have a sense of what's going to happen. They need to enjoy the journey and the way into the story from A to Z
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
So it is complicated, but it's very rewarding.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I am kind of picky about the Hallmark movies that I watch, but I really enjoyed uh Love on the Safari and some of the other ones that look, I think I might have seen some of them. Like the veteran one.
Veterans
What?
Christmas,
Yeah.
that, with the
Yeah, I
with
think I
with
might have
with
seen.
the dog.
Yes, I think I saw that one too. And I really enjoyed that because she wants the dog, her dog companion back. And
Yeah.
it was a great story. I liked it.
Well, I apparently, I've been told that's still the number one ranked holiday Christmas movie for Hallmark Movies and Mystery Channel.
Oh,
It's still the audience favorite.
oh, that's
Love on Safari, it was the most watched summer movie in Hallmark's history to that point,
hmm
and
hmm
it still ranks right up there.
yeah,
Same with, we did Love, Romance, and Chocolate, which was the first ever English language romance movie about the chocolate industry, which we filmed in
yeah,
Belgium. Where if you're going to do a movie about chocolate, you may as well go to Belgium.
right.
Um, you know, so that was also Lacey Chabert. So
Yes, I like her. I like. I
yeah,
don't think I've
she's
seen that one,
wonderful.
but that looks fun. Yeah,
Oh, it's fun,
yeah,
and it's
and
a
she
lot, and a lot of those are on a bunch of the streamers. So in the U.S., on Netflix, you'll find some of those, and on
some of them.
Amazon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love her laugh, and she always, I don't know, her characters always have this, like, there's something light about her that I
Yes,
just really enjoy. So,
she is. Yeah, to meet Lacey in person, and that's what I like about some of the actresses we work with in particular. Brittany's like that as well. The people
mhm,
that meet them realize that the person they see on screen is the person they get to meet in person, and
yeah,
that with some of the actresses that comes through the screen, and that's important, especially in this genre. You're doing everything you can to just to make everybody's day a bit brighter, and
right.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
really important.
Well, one of the things, I mean, my background's in theater, so I used to teach it, and I acted and I directed and I did all the backstage stuff except for I didn't design. I didn't do any design work. But yeah, one of the things I learned early on was the listening thing, and that's one thing about a lot of those characters is they're listening to what the other actor is saying, and then they are responding as if it's actually happening right then. And sometimes when you're watching sometimes television shows or something, it's like they have this prescribed way that they're going to react before they hear what what the other character is saying, and those are the movies that I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, as you say, I mean, you came from the theater background, as did I, and the most important thing that you can ever teach an actor is it's not about acting, it's about
Right.
reacting. In life, we listen, then respond. We
Right.
don't just respond.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
I don't know. I probably talked way too much as it is. But I love the book. I love what Aggie accomplished. Um, it's just such a wonderful, emotional, powerful read. I haven't met anybody like my father. For instance, my father's 95, and I don't know of any individual except maybe John Rhys Davies in England, Gimli from Lord of the Rings. For people who
Oh,
don't
I
know who
love
John Rhys
him.
Davies
I
is,
love him.
so
Yeah.
yeah, well, John's a dear friend,
Uh-huh.
and he's written about the book. Other than my father, I think John Rhys Davies is the only person I know that's ever probably read more books than my father. He has 5 libraries in his home. And my father said, and my father is a historian as well.
Mhm.
And he read the book and he said, I love this book because it's so powerful and I learned an incredible amount.
Yeah. I've
And
only read 8 chapters and I've already learned a whole bunch.
yeah,
So,
and you're learning it, but you it you feel it, and I think that's what a great book should do.
mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
so no, I would just encourage, you know, it, people shouldn't be afraid of it because it's about someone who's of Chinese background or wherever. They should read it just for the universal theme of the story as to what it is, set
Yeah.
against a different backdrop.
Yeah.
But it's powerful. It's universal. It's such. It seems we all should understand.
Well, you're not the first guest that I've had who has a book about someone escaping. I think his name is Robert Wolf. He's a doctor, and his parents escaped Hungary after World War II when when the communists came in and took over. So he escaped during World War II. His no, not he. Dr. Wolf didn't. It was his parents that did that. And his father escaped like a work camp, a Nazi work camp in Hungary, twice.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
after he and his wife got married and the communists came in and took over Hungary, then they escaped Hungary too. And
Wait, and that's not that long ago. I've
no,
just done 2 movies in Hungary, and when you're in Budapest, believe me, the bullet holes are still in all the buildings.
yeah, yeah,
So it's they're renovating, but when you're in Budapest, I mean, I just finished doing. I've done 5 movies in Hungary in the last 3 years,
wow, cool.
and we did one where we chartered a river cruise ship, and we
Uh-huh.
sailed the Danube, like
Mm-hmm.
the big Viking ship, but we
Mm-hmm.
did it's Emerald, and we had all 90 staterooms, and we filmed 3 movies about 3 couples falling in love while we sailed down the Danube
Yeah.
as they go through all the different countries.
Uh-huh.
But most of it was filmed in Budapest, and to be walking along the Danube and look up at a building and see all the pockmarks from the shellings in the building. Well, that's just you know, there's there's so many people alive that remember people fighting in the streets, you
Mm-hmm.
know, not that many years ago.
I know.
So this isn't
Yeah.
it isn't far afield. And unfortunately, look what's going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be many more people who this story is going on
They're gonna
today.
connect with it. Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
we're watching the same thing unfold in parts of the world all over again. I mean, when we look at Lebanon and uh,
Yeah.
Palestine and all,
Right.
we're watching these stories be told again and again and
Again and
again,
again. Yeah.
where oppression and war and brutality
Yeah.
um, just wreaks havoc on families because this isn't, it's hard when you watch it on the news. I feel really blessed because I I travel so much, and a lot of the movies that we make, we do what we call exotic location movies because I've always believed, and what we know as a fact is that somewhere between 85 and 90% of North Americans will never leave North America in their lifetime.
Mhm.
So our job is to make the Audrey Hepburn movies for the new generation and take
Yeah.
people to locations they might never get to see.
Yeah.
But the more I've traveled to those locations and the more I realized the more you travel, the more alike we are than they are different.
I
And it
know.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
where you go in the world. Um, People
Yeah.
want to, they want to laugh. They want to go sit at an outside restaurant and socialize and have meals together and watch their children go up and have a
Mhm.
better life than they had. And nobody ever wants to see their child die before them, and especially not in war.
Right.
So
Exactly.
while we look at a news footage of it, well, it's over there. Well, no, we're literally watching generations and families being destroyed
Yeah.
in a way that it's horrific. No matter how you want to justify it, rationalize it, it's a horrific toll that
Yeah.
humanity is dealing with right now
Yeah.
globally.
Right. Yeah.
So I think stories like this are more important because if we don't, if we affect one person through the telling of a story like this, of being more open and hopeful and reaching out, that's the only way we can try to make the world a little bit of a better place.
Yeah, really. That's why this story is so important. And thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being my guest.
Oh, thank you. It was really wonderful for you to invite me.
I hope you not only enjoyed this episode, but gained something valuable to take away with you. If you like what you heard, please share it with your friends and give us a rating and/or review. If you're a story lover too, I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or you might be interested in classic cinema with the Sage Sisters, a YouTube channel and Facebook page I started with my sister Celeste, where we choose one classic movie that we think still has lessons for us today. As you can see, I'm passionate about spreading the love of stories and completely believe what Philip Pullman said. After nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.